You are lying in bed at 2 in the morning and your brain will not stop. You are replaying a conversation from 3 days ago. You are imagining worst-case scenarios for a decision you have not even made yet. You are analyzing what someone meant when they said something that probably meant nothing. And the most frustrating part is you know this is irrational. You know none of this thinking is actually helping you. But you cannot stop. And here is what nobody tells you about that experience. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is actually a sign of something very specific about how your brain is wired. Because science has confirmed what many people have quietly suspected for years. The smarter you are, the more likely you are to be trapped by your own thoughts. Today we're going to break down exactly why that happens, what is going on inside your brain when it will not shut off, and the specific techniques that psychologists use to actually stop the loop. Not manage it. Stop it. Let us start with the uncomfortable truth. Overthinking is not a productivity problem. It is not a discipline problem. And it is absolutely not a character flaw. Overthinking is a cognition problem. And to understand why smart people are more vulnerable to it, you need to understand what the brain is actually doing when it overthinks. The human brain has a network called the default mode network. Neuroscientists discovered this network almost by accident. They were studying brain scans and noticed that when people were not doing any specific task when they were resting, certain regions of the brain actually became more active, not less. This network is responsible for self-referential thinking. Thinking about yourself, your past, your future, your relationships, your decisions. For most of human history, this was a survival advantage. The brain that could replay past events to learn from them, simulate future scenarios to prepare for them, and analyze social interactions to navigate them was the brain that kept its owner alive. The problem is that this ancient survival system was never designed for the modern world. It was designed for a world where most threats were immediate and physical. Today, your threats are abstract. A looming deadline, an ambiguous text message, a career decision with 100 possible outcomes. Your default mode network does not know the difference between a predator in the grass and a presentation next Monday. It treats both with the same urgent, relentless processing power. Now here is the critical piece that explains why intelligence makes this worse. Smarter people have more robust default mode networks. Research published in the journal Neuropsychology found that individuals with higher IQ scores showed greater activity in the regions associated with rumination and self-referential thought. More cognitive horsepower means more fuel for the overthinking engine. Your brain is not malfunctioning. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is just doing it in overdrive in a world that gives it far too much material and far too little resolution. The gazelle being chased by the lion either escapes or it does not. The threat resolves. But your brain never gets that resolution with modern stressors. The presentation does not happen for a week. The relationship question has no clear answer. The career choice has 50 variables. So the loop keeps running because it is waiting for a conclusion that never comes. This is what psychologists call rumination, and it is one of the most well-studied destructive thinking patterns in all of behavioral science. Rumination is not the same as problem-solving. This distinction is crucial. When you are problem-solving, your thinking is moving forward. You are generating options, testing them mentally, landing on actions. Rumination is circular. You are covering the same ground again and again without forward movement. You are not solving the problem. You are rehearsing the anxiety of the problem. And research from Yale psychologist Susan Nolan-Hoeksema, who spent decades studying this pattern, found that rumination is one of the strongest predictors of depression, anxiety disorders, and decision paralysis. The brain that ruminates is not protecting you. It is consuming you. And the more intelligent you are, the more convincingly your brain can dress up rumination as legitimate productive thinking. It feels like you are working through something. You are not. You are spinning. There is a specific psychological trap that high achievers fall into more than anyone else, and it has a name. It is called analysis paralysis. The more information a highly intelligent brain gathers, the more possibilities it can generate. And the more possibilities it generates, the harder it becomes to choose any of them. A study from Columbia University showed that when people were given more options to choose from, they were actually less satisfied with their final choice and less likely to make one at all. This is called the paradox of choice. For an overthinker, every decision becomes a research project with no end date. You keep gathering more information because your brain has convinced you that the perfect answer exists somewhere in the next article, the next opinion, the next scenario. It does not, and the search for it is costing you time, energy, and forward momentum that you will never get back. So now the real question: how do you actually stop this? And I want to be honest with you here. You will find 100 articles online that say things like go for a walk, breathe deeply, distract yourself. Those are not solutions. They are temporary relief at best. The actual psychological techniques that create lasting change work at the level of the thought pattern itself, not around it. The first technique is called cognitive diffusion, and it comes from acceptance and commitment therapy, one of the most research-backed psychological frameworks in modern clinical practice. Here is the core idea. Overthinking gains its power from the fact that you believe your thoughts are reality. When your brain says this is going to go wrong, you do not experience it as just a thought. You experience it as a fact. Cognitive diffusion is the practice of creating distance between you and your thoughts, so you can observe them instead of living inside them. One of the most effective exercises is simple but profoundly disorienting in the best way. Instead of thinking the meeting tomorrow is going to be a disaster, you say to yourself, I am having the thought that the meeting tomorrow is going to be a disaster. That small linguistic shift does something powerful. It reminds your brain that the thought is an event occurring inside you, not information arriving from outside you. Research from the Association for Contextual Behavioral Science has shown that this kind of distancing reduces the emotional impact of intrusive thoughts significantly and measurably. You are not suppressing the thought. You are changing your relationship to it. The second technique addresses the rumination loop directly. It is called scheduled worry time, and it was developed through clinical research on generalized anxiety disorder. Here is how it works. You designate a specific time each day, 15 to 20 minutes, during which you are allowed to think about your worries as thoroughly as you want. Outside of that window, when an anxious thought arises, you do not engage with it and you do not fight it. You acknowledge it and you postpone it. You tell yourself, that is a real concern, and I will give it my full attention at 6 p.m. What this does psychologically is it breaks the automatic association between a triggering thought and a spiral of rumination. Over time, clinical studies show that the worries themselves begin to lose urgency. Your brain learns that thoughts do not require immediate emergency processing. They can wait. And once your brain learns that, the hijacking loses its power. The third technique is what psychologists call behavioral activation, and it works because of a specific biological reality. Overthinking lives in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for abstract thought, planning, and self-analysis. Physical action and engaged sensory experience activate different neural pathways that literally reduce activity in the overthinking regions of the brain. This is why people say exercise helps with anxiety. But the mechanism goes deeper than stress relief. When you are doing something that requires your physical body and your present senses, your brain cannot simultaneously run the rumination program at full capacity. The key is that the activity must require genuine presence, not scrolling your phone, not watching something passively, something that demands your actual attention in the actual moment. A conversation, a physical task, an activity that requires skill. These are not distractions from your problems. They are neurological interruptions of a loop that was never solving anything to begin with.